Hello, folks. Sam Dalling here. Welcome to another episode of County Cricket Natters. Oh, that theme tune sounds a little bit longer when you're sat listening to it live. Yeah, it's our first ever foray onto YouTube. The technophobes are trying out a little bit of technology. We've lost. Oh, there we go. See, the technology has failed me already. I haven't even pressed pause on the music, and we're on a loop. Okay, so we'll keep going, though. We're missing our opening batter today. Annie Chave isn't with us, sending her our love. She's in our thoughts, and she will be back very, very soon. Dan Whiting is alongside me, and because we're a batter light, we've brought in an overseas. It's Somerset and Australia star, Matt Renshaw. Matt, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Well, thank you very much for joining us. Weekend off for Somerset. The grueling county schedule gave you a few days off, and the sun came out, didn't it?
Yeah, it was really nice. Fortunately, we had a nice bit of sun when we had time off, so I'm sure a few of the boys were really pleased with that. But yeah, as soon as we got back to cricket today, the rain came back out. So it just seems like they just like us not playing cricket with the rain. So yeah, just the way that this weather has been since I've been here this year.
What's the maximum number of layers you've had on in a county championship game so far?
Well, I've brought the double pant option this year. So you go your trackies and then you put your whites on over the top. Usman Khawaja showed me that one in we were playing in Tasmania and it was freezing. And he looked at me and lifted his pants up and showed me his trackies, and I was like, I like that one. So a few of the boys were a bit confused by that one when I was first ready to go after the game because I just took my whites off and had my travel kit on. But yeah, there was some. I think Kidderminster was the worst. I think it was like 7 degrees, windy. It was so cold, and I just was absolutely hating it out there. I was fielding deep point with my hands in my pockets as much as I could.
Desperate for a ball not to fly at you, but it's been a brilliant start to the summer in terms of results.
Yeah, it's been really nice. A couple of draws at the start. We thought we were going to go for the almighty 14 draws at one point in the season. I was still hoping for that, even when we turned up on day one against Essex and realised it probably wasn't going 4 days, especially after day one. But yeah, the boys have been playing really well. I think that Essex game was sort of epitomised the way that this group's going, and then also the Surrey draw that we managed to sort of be in a brilliant position for most of that game, barring half an hour, which sort of everything went everywhere for half an hour. But against those two quality sides is really good cricket that we were playing. So it's nice to have that in the group.
And what is it about the county game that keeps you coming back? Dan loves it. I love it. Annie loves it. It's your third stint over here? Why do you love it?
I think it's a positive and it's a negative, but you're playing every week. So you're getting a lot of cricket, which can be really good when you're in form, that you can keep rolling through if you get a few nice ones. But then at the same time, it can be quite draining, especially if you get some flat ones where you're in the field for 180 overs and no one wants to try and play cricket. It's one of my pet hates is not trying to win the game of cricket. But yeah, it's really enjoyable. You get to come and experience life in a different country. You get to meet new people. The Somerset group is an amazing group to be a part of. Some boys that I've known now for 6 years, playing with them. But yeah, it's really enjoyable for me and my family to come across for 8 weeks or the whole season. Just gives me time to come back and see some family as well. So it's a sort of cheeky little home family trip as well as some cricket.
And home was originally the northeast. Dan, I think you were going to hone in on that, weren't you?
I was, yeah. I mean, you're a Middlesbrough lad, Matt, aren't you?
Yeah, I think fortunately I left Middlesbrough. No offense to anyone from Middlesbrough, but I think Brisbane is a little bit nicer than Middlesbrough with my experiences going back since I'd grown up. But yeah, born in Middlesbrough and I lived in Sheffield as well.
Have you ever had a Palmo? Do you know what a Palmo is?
No, they're palmies where I'm from in Australia, but there's a bit of I've never heard Palmo. It's Palmy or Palmer back in Australia. So yeah, I might go home and start calling it a Palmo, and everyone will be like, "What are you on about?" But
Pa-
yeah.
Palmo is a dish from Middlesbrough. It is, a Middlesbrough speciality of chicken in a bun or chicken in a sandwich with cheese melted all over it.
Oh,
Otherwise
that
known as
does sound very nice.
it's a heart attack on a plate. Yeah.
The words Middlesbrough and speciality is sort of like an oxymoron, isn't it? They shouldn't really go together. Matt, we're going to come back and give you a very nice grilling in a little bit. But first, I want to talk about some cricket that's been happening. Dan, Division 2 and a side close to your heart you're going to talk about, I reckon.
Yeah, I'll come on to that in a minute. Talking about Usman Khawaja's trick of the tracksuit, though, I played a game once where one of the boys, it was in April and it was due to be about 3 degrees, first game of the season in club cricket. And one of the boys at our club turned up with a pair underneath his whites of his other half's tights. So there you go. Yeah, there you go. That's the way forward, I think. That's the way forward, Matt. Right, we could go to top of the table, Sussex, couldn't we? But nah, sod that. I've got the microphone here, so let's go to Northampton. And Gloucestershire have won a game of cricket after 590 days. They got 409 in the first innings. Miles Hammond, 112. Contributions there from Cameron Bancroft with 53. Josh Shaw, 44. Marshawn Delanger got runs as well. 5 wickets for Siddharth Kaur. In response, Northants were bowled out for 171. Marshawn Delanger was 5 for 42. Gloucestershire then set Northants a whopping 558 thanks to Cameron Bancroft. 130 not out. Graham Van Buren, the skipper, he got 67. And then they bowled Northants all out for 301. Emilio Gay got 74. Luke Proctor got 60. But there were 3 wickets for DeLunger, 3 for Singh Dale. Now, Matt, you're an opening batter. Apparently, Gloucestershire have got the quickest attack in the country. Marshawn, were you at Somerset together a few years ago?
Yeah, he was in 2022. We were together. We had me, him, and Pete Siddle. There was 3 overseas, so I think Sids and him rotated a little bit. And when I was away, they both played. So yeah, unfortunately, I didn't have to face him in the nets much. But yeah, he fielded second slip to him, and fortunately for me, there was no nicks to second because otherwise they're becoming very quick.
Well, I'm not surprised he's overseas because he did play in Wales for a little bit before he came to Somerset. So, yeah. Ajit Singh Dale as well. Have you seen much of him?
No, I haven't seen him. No.
Okay. Well, he's quite slippery. And yeah, they're supposed to have the quickest attack in the country. I'm not sure how that's going to work on Bristol because it can be quite a sluggish surface at times at Bristol. Cameron Bancroft. Good signing for Gloucestershire, Matt.
Very good. I think he's one of the best batters in Australia in that Shield competition. He shows year in year out that he's such a brutal batter for them. WA, you love getting him out because you know how tough he can be to get out when you play against him. So yeah, I think great signing for Gloucester. I think he played back in 2017 is my guess. If I was to be a guessing man, that he played for him. But yeah, I think he's a tremendous player.
Yeah, no, he's been a cracking signing and replaced another opening Australian batter in Marcus Harris, who was there for the last couple of years as well. So it seems to be an Australian opening batter merry-go-round in the West Country, doesn't it? So, yeah.
Yeah, I might be up there next.
You're always
Absolutely
welcome,
not.
Matt. You're always
Absolutely not.
welcome. Mark Alain's Yellow and Black Army, come and join.
I'm sure a few of the Somerset faithful wouldn't be too happy with that.
No, it was a joke. He's not really coming up the M5 and coming up to city life in Bristol. Sam, Gloucestershire, it's been a long time, hasn't it?
Yeah, it is. I should correct you. I think I'm correcting you anyway. It's just red ball cricket, right? They haven't not won a game in any form of cricket since
No,
2022.
just in 4-day
Right.
cricket. They won.
Okay.
I mean, they had a good run to the semi-finals, as you know. They beat Somerset last year in the One-Day Cup. James Bracey
Well,
got a 200.
we don't like to talk about that, did it? Yeah, it's great to see Gloucestershire doing well. You know, their financial issues have been well documented, but it's a proper cricket club. And it's great to see Miles Hammond in the runs, actually.
Yeah,
I mean, you probably know him better than I, Dan. But he's had a lean time of it in the last couple of years, but 100 back in form could be his year.
yeah, he's got all the shots. He's got all the talent in the world. For me, Miles Hammond hasn't been so much about probably not like a mental issue, but like a shot selection issue and playing the wrong shot at the wrong time to the wrong ball potentially. I think Mark Lane needs a load of credit though for what he's doing there. He's come in. Dale Benkenstein obviously went to Lancashire. I'm sure we'll come on to that later, along with Will Porterfield. Boo Boo has come in and actually changed the culture and actually given these guys a bit of freedom, and actually he's got them playing for each other. And I think they've taken a lot of stick, the players, in the last couple of years through performances, etc. There's been a lot of issues off the field at Gloucestershire, and the players need a lot of credit for sticking together because they're a talented group, and I don't think they deserve to come bottom of Division 2 last year. So fingers crossed they can stick a few together, and the fans deserve it down there as well. And I'm sure they'll be having a little cider or three down in Bristol. Anyway, let's move on to table topping Sussex. They went to Cardiff, ex-home of Marchand de Lange, and there was 4 wickets there for Hamza and 4 for Harris, the H block, as Sussex were bowled all out for 278. Glamorgan were in a little bit of trouble, but there was a partnership there of 320 between Kieran Carlson and Colin Ingram. Carlson got 148, Ingram 170. Another 5 wickets for Jaden Seals. We discussed him on last week's show, and he's just getting wickets week after week. He's been a cracking signing. Sussex then capitulated to 188 all out. Finn Hudson-Prentice got runs. He got 70. James Coles got 61. There was 5 wickets there for Andy Gorvin. Now, he might sound like he plays in midfield for Stenhouse Muir, but Andy Gorvin is actually a Portsmouth lad who went to Cardiff University, went to St Fagans Cricket Club, and got picked up by Glamorgan from there. Glamorgan got the 58 needed, won by 9 wickets, and it's all happy days in Wales. Big shock that. Did anyone see that one coming? Matt, did you see that one coming?
No, not really. I try and follow as much as I can. But yeah, I wasn't really expecting, especially after Sussex big win last week. But yeah, it's going to be interesting what Glamorgan do with. I think Marnus Labuschagne might be heading over soon, and Colin Ingram's leading run scorer in the Champo. So it's going to be interesting if they drop Marnus. I think he's probably not in form compared to Colin.
Did you know? I mean, you know Marnus quite well, Matt. Does he speak Welsh now at all, or?
No, I don't think so. It's still just Afrikaans and a little bit of Australian.
Fair enough. And Sam, Andy Gorvin, that centre midfielder from Stenhouse Muir, who's also played for Greenock Morton, St Johnstone, and Arbroath. I mean, he's those sort of typical county pros, but credit to him, eh?
I mean, yeah, I know very little about him. I have to be honest, but great to see Glamorgan doing well. James Harris as well. Do you remember when James Harris and Chris Wokes were basically at about the same stage in their careers, and it was which one of them would go on and be England's bowling all-rounder? And Harris, it didn't quite work for him. He went to Middlesex. That was meant to be the move that pushed him on. He ended up not playing so much towards the back end and has gone home to Glamorgan. So that Division 2 title race, I think, is going to be, well, wide open. I mean, those are big wins, aren't they? They're not just both Gloucestershire and Glamorgan. They're not just small victories. They are massive wins against good sides because Northants are strong. They came down last year. they've got Karen Nair in their batting lineup. So it blows it wide open. And yeah, who are they going to leave out next week? Because they're overseas. I mean, Marnus has to play. He's obsessed with cricket. Matt, did you used to play a little bit of garage cricket with him back in the day? Were you part of that group?
Yeah, I played a couple of games. I think my garage cricket, I think I made 60 odd on debut, my first innings, which is unbelievable in garage cricket because it's so much bowler friendly, as all great backyard games are. And then I don't think I scored a run after that. So wasn't invited back after that. But hopefully I try and get another game soon with him.
A tougher pitch than that Taunton one last week then for the batters.
Oh, pretty similar, yeah. And probably the umpires are very happy to give LBWs in that garage cricket game. So it'd be pretty similar to a county game on the Nipper, actually.
Do you know what my lifetime ambition is? My lifetime ambition is to go and play backyard cricket down at Dan Worrell's house, and I can run round the tree where he got his curved run from. So there you go. Right, the table, Sussex still topping it up at 78 points. Middlesex and Leicestershire, they didn't play this week. They're on 68. Glamorgan have jumped up into 4th place. They're on 67. Gloucestershire have jumped up from bottom or second bottom to 62. Then come Yorkshire at 60, so it's really tight. Northants 57, Derbyshire 43. I think anyone is capable still of going up out of Division 2. I think it's, it's the tightest thing since I went to the pub with Sam Dalling, Matt, and it was his round. So, yeah.
Not surprising, I've heard.
That is about as far from the truth as it could possibly. Well, I was going to throw it over to you to ask some questions there, Dan, but I might just jump in on top of my own first. Matt, is it true that between balls you sing to yourself?
Most of the time, yeah. Depending on what has been playing in the dressing room before I've gone out to bat. But it's something that I like to do. I remember seeing something Glenn McGrath said that he used to do it while running into bowl. I don't do it while I'm running into bowl, but I do it sort of between balls. But yeah, I'm not a great singer. I just sort of hum in my head, or sometimes if I'm really feeling it, sing out loud and get weird looks from short leg or the keeper.
Do you have a go-to song?
Not really. It sort of depends what the dressing room DJ is putting on. But Tom Banton in the Somerset room, he really likes Rihanna. So it's been a bit of Rihanna this summer. It just feels like every time just before I go out to bat, it's Rihanna, and we only get 10 minutes changeover as opening batters. So we don't get a lot of songs. So it's sort of one of 3 songs that you can do, or it's something that you've heard on the radio in the morning and you just sort of comes to you.
Yeah, well, it's been that wet. I'm sure Umbrella is probably playing.
Yeah, a couple of times, yeah. But if that's playing, we're not on there, so I don't have to worry about it.
Matt, David Warner, I want to ask you about him because there's a perception in this country about David Warner, and he's supposed to be a really nice guy, isn't he? He's supposed to be a really good teammate, good lad in the dressing room. What's the real David Warner like?
Very competitive. I really enjoy Davey in the dressing room. I came back in after a long break out of the dressing room and probably matured a lot myself, and saw him a bit different to when I was sort of 20, and just sort of getting into the team. But yeah, he hates losing. Take him on a golf course and it's more competitive than if you're playing cricket with him, which is hard to believe. But yeah, if you don't give him a 4-foot putt, he'll be pretty unhappy with you, and then he'll shoot a McGavenue and stare at you while he makes the putt. So no, I love playing with him. He's not got long left in his cricket career, so it's going to be a bit different with the Australian team not having a David Warner around. We've had 15 years of him, but yeah, I think he's an incredible guy. He'll do anything for his teammates, and sort of love having that type of guy around the group.
Because you both had sort of similar starts to your careers, didn't you? I mean, I think was picked for Australia after 12 games, and you after 11, was it? Something like that. I think you were the youngest player to score a Sheffield Shield ton. Were there, similarities between you?
Yeah, I think there were some real similarities apart from our height, the way we played, strike rates.
And you give 4
but
foot
yeah,
putts away.
yeah. I think in terms of we were both young, we sort of didn't know what was going on. But yeah, I think his T20 debut where he came out and smacked South Africa around was very different to me coming in and blocking the pants off him in Shield cricket and somehow getting picked. But yeah, seeing his 100 in a session at the other end was pretty special. Getting booed because I couldn't get him on strike, but it wasn't because I was being selfish. I just couldn't hit the ball. And then
hang on. You got booed by your own fans.
Yeah, so I think it was the fourth ball of the over. I tried to hit with 1 or 2 overs left before lunch, and I tried to hit a single and missed it, and I got booed. And then the next ball I left it, and it was dot ball over, and the whole crowd cheered because they knew Davey was on strike. And then he hit one down to third man, and I've sprinted as fast as I could for 3. Running on a misfield, which is something you don't do, which I've learned this summer as well. You don't run on misfields, even if your teammate's on 99. But yeah, just didn't really care if I got run out. I was trying to get him to 100.
Hey, that was a good opening stand, wasn't it? 126 without loss at lunchtime. So you played your role.
126 not out at lunch, and I hit the last ball for 4 before lunch. So yeah, it was a weird old time, him being on 100 and me being on 20. But it was a nice thing to watch at the other end, someone just going out there and just smacking him wherever he wanted it from ball 1.
And talk us about your debut, because it was a win for Australia. It was against South Africa. It couldn't really have been more difficult in terms of day-night game. Pink ball, presumably. Philander, Abbott, Rabada coming in at you.
Yeah, pink ball game in Adelaide. We lost the toss and were fielding, which was very nice for the nerves. But I think if I look back, they were 9 down. It was about an hour to go. And Faf was batting and he just ran off, declared. And so I'm like, oh, I need to go and open. And Davey had gone off for his shoulder. I think he'd hurt his shoulder diving. And so he was off for too long. So I had Uzi opening the batting with me, which was probably a little bit of help because I think in retrospect, Davey wouldn't have let me not take first ball. But I think I was in the dressing room padding up and I looked up at Uzi and sort of gave him the look like, will you please take first ball? And he just went, I'll take first ball, mate. And yeah, fortunately got a run. But it was a tough 8 overs that night to try and get through. I think he was still on naught when it was stumps. But yeah, Rabada, Philander and Abbott with a pink ball under lights was as probably tough as a debut as I can think of.
Yeah, it's not bad that. And when how it came about through your kind of youth career, was it right you worked a lot with Greg Chappell?
Yeah, he was my under-19s coach. We went to Sri Lanka and England for a couple of tours. So yeah, I think sometimes when he was talking about batting, it was sort of how easy would this guy have had it. I remember one specific one. He was like, if you get a low full toss, you should just be able to hit it over cover or mid-wicket. And I remember thinking, how can you just hit low full toss or just hit it over mid-wicket or cover? But yeah, I think that sort of sums up the type of player that he was. When he played, I wasn't old enough to be able to watch him live, but a bit of highlights. He was a very stylish batter.
Yeah, he was class, absolute quality. Ian Chappell was a good player as well, but yeah, Greg Chappell was absolute class.
He was. Right, we're going to have to move on to Division 1 shortly, but there's one topic we have to cover, really. Lords, right? Couple of questions. You did a stint on the MCC Young Cricketers, didn't you? That was based out of Lords. What was that like?
Yes. Mark Lane was my coach.
Yes.
Yeah.
So he was there before Curbs. He was there before Steve Kirby, yeah?
Yeah, so that was his last year there when I was there. So yeah, that came about. Billy Root, Joe's brother, was living with us in Australia playing club cricket. And he was on the MCC. So I was about to finish school and I was like, well, what's the worst that can happen? I'm going to go over and play league cricket anyway. I might see if this works. Unfortunately got on that. So, yeah, played a little stint for the YCs. And then I think the biggest thing that I was frustrated about was because I was Australian, I wasn't allowed to do any 12th men for the tests or the ODIs at Lords. So every time that came along, I had to be selling radios or doing the counting or whatever, all the jobs that you get to do as a YC. But we had the bicentennial game, and I sort of looked that up, and I was like, surely I can get a gig at this one. And yeah, fortunately got told I could 12th man that one, which was a pretty special day and week to be around Lords with all the legends that were around there.
Yeah, and you did a little bit more 12ers duty at Lords last year in what is the Ashes test that I don't need to tell people what happened, but I just wonder what that was like. It feels completely unique in terms of a day of test cricket. It must have been fun, right?
It was weird for me because I got told I was leaving the squad after that match because the way that the squad was working, that I wasn't needed. So I knew I was leaving, and then Nathan Lyon tore his calf, and everyone on the bench just looks at me and they're like, "You're going on the field," and I was like, "Okay, I'll field." And so I've gone out in the field and I finished the first innings, and then because I'm fielding, I'm like relaxing during the batting innings. Did a little bit, helped out the boys, threw some gloves down from the balcony, and then the second innings of fielding, it was like they were chasing this down. I don't want to drop a catch. It's day 5, and I want to drop a catch and then leave the squad tomorrow after losing against the Ashes. So I'm standing at deep square, and Stokes is starting to play some shots, and I'm just like, I cannot see a thing. I was like, oh no, I'm going to drop a catch here. It's going to cost us the Ashes. But yeah, I don't know what else you're talking about that match. What else happened?
Nothing better than a crowd getting stuck into you, surely.
I think that my favourite moment of, I haven't told many this, but my favourite moment was, so I'm at Deep Square and I've looked in the crowd and I found my parents. So parents born in England, lived in England for 40 plus years, dad, fanatical sports fan. And I look over and he's wearing an Australian jumper, which I'm like, oh my God, he's wearing an Australian jumper at Lords. This is the best thing ever. And then the incident happens, lunch happens. I come back out after lunch, fielding in the same position, and I look over and Dad's got a different jumper on over the top of his Australian jumper. And I'm just like, I looked at him and I pointed at him, I laughed. And then later on, he was like, we literally couldn't wear like anyone who was wearing anything Australian in the crowd was just getting abused of. A couple of the boys, like families, were getting in like arguments in the crowd. Like anyone Australian was just getting hosed by the English crowd. So he was just like, I just can't be bothered dealing with it. But it's just my favorite moment from the whole thing was that he just put another jumper over his Australian jumper.
Brilliant. What was the walk through the long room like?
It was incredible. Like it's weird because there's no other ground in the world where you walk like through inside a building through where people are. Yep. So like it's pretty cool like in normal times because like they're all giving it like the nice posh golf claps and you're like, this is pretty cool. I could get used to this. And then this one, we're getting booed in the crowd and we're like, oh, okay, we'll walk off and it'll be fine. It was like the 90th minute of a Champions League final. People were kicking people's feet from behind. We were just getting abused. Like, I just never seen anything like it by a bunch of 90-year-old English white men. There was one moment I specifically remember. It was like this bloke was just frothing at the mouth. He was just calling us all kind of names. And I just remember looking at him. I'm like, mate, you need to go home and have a sleep because you're not well. But it was just like, yes, I understand it's cricket, but these blokes are like absolutely losing their marbles because one bloke threw the ball at a stump and they weren't too happy with it when they make the laws of the game.
Well, they're a unique bunch, Matt, and I'll tell you that if you're on the pitch looking towards the pavilion, the back row of the bottom tier, so towards the bowler's bar, that's where the particularly elderly gentlemen tend to congregate on that back row. And because of their age, it's actually become now known as death row.
Yeah, I felt like there was a few people that were hoping that they could get their knives out and try and do something from death row for us. But yeah, I think it was funny because we went in and we were getting sprayed by all these blokes, and then we came out 40 minutes later, and all the crowd in the long room are clapping us, and we're like, "What's going on here?" Like, and me knowing that I'm going home, leaving the squad tomorrow, I was just like, "This is great. This is unreal."
Yeah.
Oh, it
Yeah.
sounds like an absolutely wonderful experience. Thank you for sharing that. As much as I could chat to you for the next hour about this, I suspect you've got a better things to do with your evening. So let's rattle through Division 1. We'll start up at Trent Bridge, and it was a 9-wicket victory for Nottinghamshire. It looked like it was going to be all over early on day 4. Bit of late resistance from Lancashire. Matty Hurst made in first-class 100 for him. But the story really is Haseeb Hameed, the Nottinghamshire skipper. It's been a lean time of things for him this year and last year, really. Carried his bat for 247 unbeaten of 459 balls, his career best score. Matt, shows there's a place for a proper opening batter in cricket still.
Yeah, definitely. He's probably not been watching Ben Duckett that much, and as he's inspiring all these new players. But yeah, I think I've watched him since he was sort of 18, 19 in that Indian series, and love the way he goes about it. He when we played him, he probably played a couple of big shots early in that first innings, and then second innings he got a pretty nice ball from Craig. But yeah, I think the biggest thing I remember seeing from that game there was Will Young left one on middle stump. Would have been nice if he left one on middle stump against us a little bit early, and we didn't have to go 110 overs for 1 wicket. But yeah, I think Notts are a cagey, strong team with their batting lineup. I think I saw they've got 4 double hundreds in the last 3 games. So someone's standing up every game, and yeah, I think their bowling attack is not too bad as well when they've got everyone fit.
Yeah, Dylan Pennington didn't play in that Somerset game. There was an England selector down to watch Aldridge and Pennington at that game in Taunton, neither of whom played. But Dan, he could be the man that potentially steps up. Now Jimmy Anderson's retiring, England need fast bowling stocks. He's probably bowling as good as anyone in the country.
Yeah, he's big, he's tall, and he's got a little bit of aggression about him. I covered a game at Cheltenham last year against Gloucestershire where they were docked 5 penalty runs because he threw the ball at Jack Taylor, and the very next ball he bowled him and did aeroplane celebrations all around Cheltenham. So yeah, he enjoyed that one. Lancashire, I think, could be in real trouble. I hope they're not, because I hope Dale can go and sort it out. I know Dale from Gloucestershire quite well, and Will Porterfield have gone up there. They're good people, and there's some horrible things being written on social media from Lancashire fans, some from Gloucestershire fans as well, which isn't particularly pleasant to see. And Dale is a good man. He always fronted up even after a loss, always came out, spoke to the media, never hid away. And I hope he can go and sort Lancashire out. And, I bet the fans hope more than I am.
Yeah, there's a fair bit of work to do. They're down the bottom of the table. At the other end, though, Surrey, they just keep winning, don't they? They didn't win by an innings, but they did manage to win by 9 wickets. Pretty comfortable all in. I mean, plenty of standout performers. Kemar Roach, 6 for Jamie Smith, 150. Do you like the look of Jamie Smith, Matt?
Yeah, when we played him in that April game, he looked like a really nice player. Boys saying he's a nice keeper as well, but I haven't seen too much of that. But yeah, I think he looks like as comfortable as any with the bat.
And Dan, you've been doing a fair bit of Surrey stuff this year. Must be a joy at the moment.
Yeah, they've gone 70 points out of a potential 72 in the last 3 games, and they're absolutely flying. Jamie Smith, I think, is nailed on to play for England. Just a matter of when. Jordan Clark impresses me week in, week out. He either picks up wickets. He got 100 in the last game against Hampshire, and it's just their depth. They've just got options. I think if one bowler's not doing the business, someone else always steps in there. They didn't play their express men in this one. They didn't play Jamie Overton. They didn't play Gus Atkinson. So they've got other options. There's no Tom Laws at the moment. He's got a heel injury. So there's plenty of options for the game next week against Worcestershire in that bowling attack. And the batters are just they bat all the way down. Even Kemar at 11 is no muppet, So they've just got options right the way through.
Sean Abbott comes in at 10. Did you see the 6 he hit? I don't know if either of you saw it. Matt, you will probably know more about Sean Abbott. God, he hit this pulled 6. It went so hard and so fast to the boundary. The camera couldn't keep up.
No.
Yeah, no, he's a nice player with bat and ball. But it feels like whenever he comes over here, he just starts absolutely smacking him. I remember seeing he got 100 off like 40 balls in the blast last year. I think it was. Maybe less than 40 balls. But yeah, he's a nice player for them to sort of bring in now.
Yeah, they've got.
Yeah, he's. I'm not sure he's got a pencil moustache going on though at the moment, which I'm not quite sure about. But if anyone gets a chance to see his caught and bowled, do try and see that. I'm sure he'll do the rounds on social media because it's one of the best I've ever seen. It's absolutely nailed back at him from Ed Bernard, and he has to take it in front of him because it's not going to carry, and he picks it up about an inch off the floor in his follow through. It's just an amazing piece of athleticism.
Well, last couple of games, both draws. Of course, it was a draw down the Ageas Bowl. They've had 3 games, 24 wickets in the first one, 24 wickets in the second, just 22 in this one. It's basically, if you're a bowler, you do not want to be going there. If you're a batter, it's ideal. Dan, Hampshire, Alior. Actually, Matt, did you play in the game where Alior got 100 in the Royal One Day London Cup a couple of years ago? I can't remember. I should have looked this up. He smashed it.
Maybe.
Remember.
I think he's a left. I think he hit one on top of the flats.
Exactly that. Yeah, he got 180 odd, didn't he?
Yeah. Could have been 200.
Yeah, it might have been.
We had a couple of doubles against us that year. It wasn't a great year in the one-day comp. But yeah, I think he smacked one on top of the flats.
He did.
On the far side. But yeah, he looked a nice player that day. But I think, yeah.
And it's not great turning up to a ground like that, knowing that it's going to be such hard work. I mean, I know you're a batter and it seems like there are runs to be had, but it just doesn't quite find the balance, does it?
No, I think that's the problem I've found a little bit with the county game is that sometimes you just go to a ground and teams just try and make them as flat as possible. I don't know whether that's because there's 2 divisions, teams are trying to stay in Div 1 or they're just trying to get the draw points, but it feels like sometimes they might need to try and win the game.
Yeah, well said, Matt. I mean, I think 8 points for a draw is way too many. And we saw it a few years ago. Northamptonshire stayed in Division 1 by virtue of, every week was 500 plays 500. It makes rubbish cricket. It makes absolutely rubbish cricket. But they stayed up because they got their bonus points and then they got their draw points on top of that. And they managed to sort of pick up 13, 14, 15 every week.
Yeah, that's what we're talking about that with where you'd finish if you've had 14 draws. I think you'd finish I think we worked out you finish 4th or something like that if you've drew every game. Which I think it's not a bad tactic if you're trying to stay up, but it just doesn't promote good cricket. But it also doesn't promote guys coming in at 70, 65 mile an hour bowling overarm to try and nip it, which is also another frustration of mine. But I think I'd rather that than the former.
Yeah, and very finally, there was a similar game really down at Canterbury. Worcestershire made a huge total. They were hundreds for Gareth Roderick, Jason Holder, Matthew Way. There was a big 100 as well from Jack Leaning, 179 unbeaten. Daniel Bell Drummond's passed 50 in every innings this year so far, by the way. But I mean, Dan, this game was about something that's so much more than cricket, really.
Yeah, it was. It's been a horrendous time, not only for Worcestershire County Cricket Club, but for the game in general. And this was all about Josh Baker and remembering, a great young cricketer. Daniel Bell Drummond, I think, needs a lot of credit. I think he's leading from the front, captaincy wise, scoring runs. And if Matt was cold at Kidderminster, let me tell you that I've only just thawed out after my trip to Canterbury 3 weeks ago, and I was very jealous of Daniel Bell Drummond, who had a parking spot right outside the media centre, whilst I was right over on the Nackington Road side of the ground there and had to walk through a freezing wind that brought tears to the eyes.
Well, the thought of you crying, Dan, I think is a perfect way to end the podcast. Matt Renshaw, thank you very much for spending some time with us this evening. We've very much appreciated it.
No worries. Thanks for having me, guys.
Thanks, Matt.
And thank you very much to all our County Cricket Natters listeners. We really do appreciate you. We will be back next week, only a couple more weeks before we get a little bit of a break. We've been on the road for, 7 or 8 weeks. By then, it'll be time for us to put our feet up for some white ball cricket. But we will keep you covered until then.